In this video, I want to mention about the Web3 config. So Web3.js has the config with these fields inside, which help you to set something once and it will use inside the library in all transactions, and you set up how library should behave. So the first and easiest way to set the config, it is to set it when you create the instance of the Web3. Web3, new Web3, like we usually do. And check what is the default config. Okay, this is default config. For example, we want to change default transaction type. Okay, let's check config right now. And we see default transaction type right now is 0. Also, we can change it later, like set config and set default transaction type to 1, for example, and print it. Set for config results. Here it will be default config. Let's run. Okay, this is the default config, and we set it null because we set this in the construction. And then set config results, default transaction type is 1. So why we need to set this? For example, we want to change this type of the transaction, and now we don't need to set it in every transaction right here, because we set the config, it automatically will be populated in each transaction. But if we set the type here, this type will be main. It will replace the config. For example, like this. Okay, and a little bit advanced usage. So you can use this config also in separate packages. The same pattern, absolutely the same. And also you can set it, let's call it Web3.js to be easier. Config, also you can set config. So as usual, like in the Web3, let it be type 1, here let it be 0. And then, for example, I want to create the instance of the contract using the separate package of the contract. In this case, it will be default config, because we do not use any context here, or we can pass the context from the Web3.js or another package, it can be Web3 package, and pass it to the contract. And I will have the two console logs for the default config and for contract config after populated the context. Let's call it contract config context. And run this. This is context. Okay. So we have default contract config, and default transaction type is 2, because in the Web3 right now the default type is 2. And then populated context config, it is 1, because here is set 0 and then set 1, and then populate this context to the contract. So it's easy to use. You can check any parameter, what is it and how it's changed the behavior of the Web3 library. Click on it. We have descriptions here, etc. What is the default value? It is what I have to say you about the configuration of the Web3.